Hello, class. My name is Scott Jenkins. I'm 28 years old, and I live in Tucson, Arizona, stationed at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. A little bit about me. I'm married to my best friend, mostly my best friend because she puts up with everything that I dish out. So I got lucky in that aspect, and together we have three children. So our oldest is 7, then our middle is 6, and our youngest is a year and a half old. And my beautiful wife is also military. So as you can assume, we have a very busy day to day. We recently had a big change. I went to swing shift, so it was kind of a blessing in disguise because now that means that I have the house all to myself to do schoolwork instead of trying to juggle it at night. On the downside, I don't really get to see my kids and my wife other than on the weekends, and it's the first time that the Air Force has put us in this predicament in 4.5 years. So it's a bit of a learning curve. It's only been a week. I'm tired all the time, but I'm really enjoying it because we have a very loud household, and this means I can actually make videos, and I'm cool with that. Um, so I joined the Air Force when I was 19. Right out of high school, when I graduated in 2005, my dad retired from the Air Force. He was a firefighter, and we moved to Arizona, where I joined. Well, not joined. I started freshman year at ASU, and my parents were paying for the entire thing. And I still remember freshman orientation. One of the speakers saying that like 90% of freshmen drop out because they party too much, do drugs, whatever the case may be. And guess who fit that description? So by the end of my freshman year of college, I was failing. And that meant my parents spent $12,000 on nothing. So my entire life, I had said I would never join the military. And all of a sudden, I was at a recruiter's doorstep saying, please help me be gone before my parents get this report card. I have very supportive parents. If you were to ask my mom about that now, she would say it was the best $12,000 she ever spent for me to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I'm blessed in that aspect. That being said, I joined the Air Force and became a maintainer. I work on airplanes. In high school, I went to a vocational high school. My high school diploma is I have a basic, and then I have a technical in welding and fabrication. I learned at a very young age that I was good with my hands. Uh, that led into the Air Force. I love working on planes. My first base was Minot Air Force Base. Hated the base, loved the airplane. The B-52 was a glorious plane to work on. Very daunting, especially when I was brand new. Um, but that kind of segues into my educational background because once I settled and the uh, Air Force got me to Minot, my life kind of leveled out and I became more mature. I went back to school and I bounced from degree to degree at least 3 or 4 times before I finally was like, why don't I just get a CCAF, which is the handy dandy associate's degree that the Air Force will give me if I just go do all the basic gen ed classes. So I did, and that was a nice first step. But I was what we call in the military a fast burner. I made rank pretty fast, and that meant that by the time I hit 4 years in service, I was high enough rank, and um, the people in my career field thought I was good enough that I got hired on as an instructor. So I went to basic instructor course and I received a second associate's because I had a new career field in instruction in military science and technology. And I started the best job in the world. I got to teach hydraulics, B-52 hydraulics, to individuals that would PCS to the base. It was a short 11-day course, but the military taught me how to build a lesson plan, how to build PowerPoints, how to deliver a lesson. It was great. I always knew that I wanted to teach because I love to talk, but that was the first time that I got to feel the pleasure of the light bulb going off, knowing that I explained something well enough to where somebody understood it. Uh, on a technical front, when you're working on airplanes, it's really easier to tell. You can't really BS your way out of knowing that, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. That's when I finally decided to pick an actual degree plan for my bachelor's. I got a degree in English, and in hopes of kind of melding two dreams together, one to teach and one to write. I finished my bachelor's, and my wife got what we call a BOP, and we moved to Davis-Monthan. Once we got here, I started my master's in creative writing. Now, the reason this is my passion dates back to, I couldn't have been more than 11, when the PageMaster came out, as I'm sure a lot of you remember from like 93. We lived in Colorado, my family, and I saw the first preview for that movie, and as a young kid, I thought it was the most glorious looking movie in the world, but it took a long time for movies to come out. My parents didn't want to take me as a hyper little kid to a movie theater, so I did the only thing I could. I wrote a 2-page story on what I thought the PageMaster would be, and it was horrible. One of my dad's friends came over, and I was like, hey, read my story, and I got it back, and words were crossed out and respelled, and I remember how broke down I felt that, man, I wanted you to read it. I didn't want you to tell me how much I'd suck. But that was the first time I'd ever written something, and I wrote it for me. I wrote it because I wanted to know what happened in that movie, and I was like, well, who better to tell me what happens in that movie but myself? From that point on, I would dabble in writing, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a school that would fit my military requirements to get a bachelor's in creative writing, but now I have the opportunity to get a master's in creative writing. That kind of pushes me towards my supreme passion, which is to be published. Really, I live in two worlds. I'm really good at being a mechanic, and I really love the Air Force. I bleed blue, as they say. At 8 years in, I'm a technical sergeant, an E6. I've made it pretty far, and it may sound bad, but I've made it that far because I love it. In my opinion, the Air Force as a system, like our government, it works perfectly, just like communism would. People ruin it. The system itself is amazing, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Every now and again, a bad person interprets regulations wrong. And because of that love I have for the Air Force, I have no problem imagining myself being in the Air Force all the way through retirement. But at the same time, like I said, I've always had this passion to be published. Does that mean that I want to be a famous author? Not necessarily. I would just like to know I put something out there that some people have read. And I would like to think a lot of the best authors didn't do it to get rich, because there isn't a whole lot of authors that get rich just off of writing. But that's where it kind of gets weird, because I work with maintainers, but I like to write. A lot of my friends make fun of me, but then they come with all their ideas of stories they think I should write. So from that, that leads me to why I'm getting this degree. I mostly enjoy the fact that in a bunch of the classes, I got to take stories that I've written and add on to them, and get feedback from professors, and that's amazing. But I'm really scared that because I'm so set in the Air Force career, I'm never going to get a chance in the other world. Past self-publishing, which is a very big possibility for me right now, looking into the Kindle edition for stuff. But when we first got to Davis-Monthan, I thought about teaching, maybe getting out of the Air Force and teaching. And my wife looked at me, and being my best friend and always looking out for my best interest, she was like, you would miss wearing your uniform. She was like, you may have loved teaching for the Air Force, and you may love teaching down the road, but she was like, you'll miss your uniform. You probably should wait until you retire and the Air Force says you're too old, get the hell out, and then go teach, because then I wouldn't have any grits. And I think she was right. So down the road, I may get into teaching. I'd love to teach high school, maybe college, depending. Uh, I'm more used to intimate environments where it's less people. I don't really think I could get used to teaching such a large crowd like it was when I was at ASU. I felt like I got lost in a crowd. I just slipped out of classes, um, but it's just not for me right now. So one thing I want to say, one thing that I hope to get out of this class is some giant leaps towards becoming published. I love to write. I write horror. I grew up reading Goosebumps. I hate Stephen King, which is funny because that's the first question anybody ever asks because I say I like to write horror. If you would like to know my two favorite authors, one is Matt Shaw. He's from England, and he writes what he calls extreme horror, and they're pretty gruesome. And then not an horror author, but Arthur Nersesian. He's written books such as Suicide Casanova, The Fuck Up, Unlubricated. They're very real world drama type books, and I actually fell in love with him because I got detention in high school once and I wanted a book to read, but I also wanted to push the limits, so I found this book that said The Fuck Up right across the cover, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to take to school. They made me cover it within like 3 minutes. I don't know what I was thinking. But come to find out, it's one of my favorite books ever. So that's me in a nutshell. One thing I want to add, biggest flaw. My biggest flaw is editing. Anytime I read something I wrote, whether it be academic or fiction, I tear it apart. And I get that we all do that, but I tear it apart to the point to where my stomach gets into knots because I'm like, I start going down that trail of why are you even doing this? You're not good at it at all, which is funny. My wife tells me I'm being stupid because I have a pretty good GPA. I make pretty good grades, but I'm trying to overcome that pattern of being scared to edit, being able to edit my work without assuming everything I wrote is garbage, because usually what happens is by the time I get to the second paragraph or so, I just stop and I'm like, it's just going to get submitted the way it is. And then when I get it back, I spelled there, or there wrong, because usually when I write, there's a glass of scotch involved. But that's what my biggest flaw is, and I want to be pushed to fix before I finish my master's, is start to become a more talented and stronger editor. So I look forward to working with everybody in this class, and thanks for watching.